myself with the remarks of all of my Democratic colleagues. That covers a lot of territory. Mr. Speaker, under the visionary leadership of President Biden, Democrats have forged historic progress for America's families. First, we enacted the life-saving American Rescue Plan to propel us out of the pandemic, put money in pockets, vaccines in arms, children in safely in school, people back to work. Next, we secured the transformative bipartisan infrastructure package to create good...
Folks, checks will be sent out immediately for millions of Americans. More and more states and cities are offering new stimulus relief payments to residents that are experiencing financial difficulties. The Americans that meet all the requirements will be eligible to receive this $2,000 check and rebate checks. Now, the national average for a gallon of regular gas has topped $5 before. And while today's current average is still high compared to last year, at least people are still coughing up only $1 more per gallon instead of $2. The needle is moving in the right direction, everyone agrees on that. And even so, gas is still expensive and general inflation has sent the cost of just about everything up across the entire economy. So the American people need all the help they can get. Millions of Americans live in a handful of states that are helping their residents pay at the pump, or at least considering it. Californians have suffered the highest average gas prices in the country since the start of the fuel inflation crisis, and it remains that way today. Prices have been falling across the country, and the national average is now down to less than $4.17 as of August 3rd. But despite the widespread relief, California is the only state with an average price above $5.50. Californians are paying more than $6 a month ago. In October, California will start distributing the direct payments of around $1,000, depending on filing status and household makeup, to millions of Golden State residents. In the spring, when prices are still over $6, the governor proposed the distribution of gas cards, but lawmakers opted instead for direct cash payments, which people could also use to buy groceries, diapers, and other necessities. It's been more than 2 months since Democrats in North Carolina proposed issuing a $200 rebate to every eligible resident with a valid driver's license in the state. The bill calls for using 20% of the state's budget to use and fund the rebate. And while there is still no political will to get behind a state gas tax holiday, like the kind that President Biden has proposed at the federal level, at the local news affiliates have reported that at least some Republicans are considering the rebate. However, they prefer a more permanent tax cut. While there is still no political will to get behind a state gas tax holiday, like in April, the windy city of Chicago has also created their own program, which continues to give out 50,000 $150 gas cards and 100,000 prepaid $50 transit cards. Now, if you live in a city, you may be eligible to receive and get this relief. The program runs through September, but applicants must file by the 1st of the month. Now in June, officials delayed a scheduled gas tax increase from July 1st to January of next year, which will save consumers $70 million.
Give myself the balance of my time. I want to remind my Republican colleagues and the American people once again what Republicans will be voting against today. They'll be voting against cutting prescription drug prices for their constituents. They'll be voting against combating inflation and lowering energy costs. They'll be voting against the largest federal investment in dealing with climate crisis in the history of this country. And I cannot believe I still heard from the other side today the hoax comment. Climate change is a hoax. You would think that as we watch what's going on in the world, while I watch what's going on in my state, when my citizens in eastern Kentucky were devastated by historic floods, when my citizens in western Kentucky were devastated by historic tornadoes, all of which scientists have said were exacerbated by climate change, that there are still people who deny that climate change exists. But for the first time in this country, we will show true leadership to the world that we are taking action, and we are going to lead the world in combating climate change. And the gentleman from Texas said, Democrats own this bill. Yes, we do. Proud of it. I don't know one member of the Democratic caucus who is not thrilled to death today that we are doing what we're doing.
Lawmakers cannot ignore the fact that prices are rising like crazy. Millions of Americans are beginning to no longer be able to afford the same food.
Well, we can put forth Social Security for our children. This will make a tremendous difference in the lives of America's families and so proud that so many children will be taken out of poverty. My whole thing in politics, my why, was the sadness over 1 in 5 children living in poverty in America. 1 in 5 children in America going to sleep hungry at night. How could it be? Well, this tax credit, I call it the Biden tax credit. Thank you, Mr. President. Does a lot to alleviate that.
Millions of Americans are beginning to no longer be able to afford the same food that they just bought a couple months ago. That's because the crisis is only making things worse. Now everyone in Congress needs to make sure that the most poor people are not left out of receiving any stimulus money.
On the evolution of the movement to remove highways all across America, and they showcased Rochester. And what you see now in the site of the former Interloop there was, first of all, they had room to expand the beautiful Strong Museum of Play. If you have not taken your kids there too, after you've seen everything here, go to Rochester. It is gorgeous. It is gorgeous. They had room to expand there. Affordable housing, supportive housing, townhouses, a neighborhood. It is stunning, and it also understood that there could be tremendous pressure for gentrification if you didn't build the affordable housing as part of it immediately. So people who want to live there in beautiful new homes, these are stunning. I walked to the apartments, I saw what was being done, supportive housing for veterans and others who've been identified as places and individuals who need help. We did that in Rochester on the very site where there had been a highway not unlike the one right outside these doors. That's what gives me hope. It's been done before with great success. And we always know that the land downtown is the most valuable. This is where people want to congregate. We know that. People see the possibilities just as I have growing up in an area where the people used to say the last one out of town turn out the lights. We've come a long way from that attitude. We are optimistic now. We see a better future. And the city, once the highway's gone, they can develop this into a wonderful asset for them. To take something that had just been an eyesore and people just got used to it, never even questioned why it's even there in the first place, something we just accepted. We're no longer just accepting things because they came before. We can't always assume they did it right the first time, as the Majority Leader pointed out. So building back a city, it's a multifaceted approach, and there's no examples where the quality of life in a community or a neighborhood improved when they put a highway in, but when you remove it, it happens like this. As I mentioned, people congregating, children playing, what we can do with parks and linkages, but also the jobs that are created doing this, critically important as we're coming back after this pandemic, so I'm excited about that aspect of it, as well as just the thought that this place matters. It matters enough, the people matter enough that we're going to reconnect, reunite the neighborhoods.